Welcome. We'll get started in just a moment. We just want to let a few more people come on. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our town hall series. My name is Jessica Proud, and I will be moderating today's discussion. And before I turn it over to today's host, Chairman Langworthy, I just wanted to give you a brief rundown for those of you who haven't joined us before. First, you'll be welcomed by Chairman Langworthy, who will say a few words, and then he will turn it over to the very special guest we have with us today, Fox News' Janice Dean. And then in the second part of the event, we're going to turn it over to all of you in the audience for a Q&A portion. So you can ask your question one of two ways. If you would like to be on camera, you can use the raise your hand function. And if you prefer to not be on camera, you can simply type your question into the Q&A box and it will be read aloud. So that's raise your hand function if you'd like to be on camera, or you can type it in. And we will do our best to get through as many questions as possible. So please feel free to get them into the queue right away. And with that, I'll turn it over to our host, Chairman Langworthy. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. We have really the biggest audience that we've ever had for one of the chairman's town halls. It's really great to get back going with this series, and we're going to try to come at you every single week and maybe mix it up on the times a little bit. But it was an incredible series for us to be able to showcase a lot of candidates running for office and issues that were before us. And, you know, as we're here into 2021, we have a lot of work to do. It's been a little while since we've done this, but the elections are behind us of 2020. Finally, we have a new year underway, new issues, new agenda, and I thought there was no better way to get started than to bring our friend, Fox News senior meteorologist, Janice Dean, back to join us. It's almost inconceivable that we're almost a year into this COVID crisis, and it feels like we're right back where we started last spring. New York has now topped 40,000 deaths due to the COVID-19. We continue to hold the distinction of most in the nation, despite Andrew Cuomo never bringing that topic up. We've lost many of our businesses forever. The amount of bars and restaurants and businesses surrounding entertainment that have closed their doors for good, those are staggering statistics. Indoor dining is still closed in New York City, and it is only starting to reopen due to court cases in upstate, despite a transmission rate of 1.4% by Andrew Cuomo's own math. Parents and kids are still dealing with frequent school closures and the challenges of remote learning. Our seniors are still trapped in isolation. Many in nursing homes don't have the opportunity to see or communicate with family members. And there's been so much despair from these shutdowns that have been ignored by this governor. Drug and alcohol addiction, overdoses, mental health issues, domestic and child abuse, and depression. There's been a very heavy cost to this heavy-handed dictate. The contrast between New York and how it's been run and how a state like Florida has been run is just night and day. Governor DeSantis, he put his trust in the people to know what's best for them. He put responsible safety guidelines in place, and he's allowed people to live their lives with precautions. And somehow, a state with 2 million more people than us has only half of the deaths that New York has. Florida has populated cities. They have, tons of our population, a lot more elderly Floridians than there are New Yorkers, but they use common sense, which is the ingredient that is sorely lacking by nanny state liberals that run the state of New York and our emperor, Andrew Cuomo. Thankfully, we saw the light at the end of the tunnel with the approval of the vaccine, thanks to President Trump's Operation Warp Speed. A vaccine is upon us, and people are getting shots as we speak. All the talking heads said it couldn't be done, and there was no way that there would be a vaccine in 1 year, let alone in 11 months. But once again, New York State finds a way to mismanage anything. Andrew Cuomo's mismanagement is preventing this vaccine from getting into people's arms. It started with him drawing doubt on the vaccine and its safety because he wanted to score cheap political points with his base and attack our former president. And now New York lags behind 26 other states in getting the vaccine administered to its citizens. I mean, there's a huge percentage of dosage sitting on shelves, and medical providers were forced to throw out precious vials because they couldn't find recipients that fit into the narrow, restrictive band of citizens that Governor Cuomo said were allowed to get the vaccine. A leak, a computer link leaked out, and people were given appointments that had to be revoked because they didn't fall into the criteria. And they blamed it on hacking, but what do you know? They didn't refer it to any law enforcement agency or the FBI. With Andrew Cuomo, there's more lies, more smoke and mirrors, and more dysfunction of the government. It's not a secret that a vaccine was on the way. The plans should have been in place. They should have been laid out. This should be being administered right now, in my opinion, by the National Guard to do it quickly and efficiently, just like much of the early testing was rolled out. But then to add insult to injury, he said he wanted to put inmates, drug addicts, and sex offenders before our 65 to 75-year-olds. This has been disgraceful, and every day of this incompetence puts more New Yorkers at risk. The toll that this has taken on our citizens is immeasurable. There's frustration, there's fury. People want change. They want someone that's actually running the show, that's not just proud to be in charge, that actually knows what they're doing. And every single one of us has been affected in some way. And there are far too many families that have lost far too much. And that's what brings us to our special guest today. As you frequent guests of our video town halls might remember, Janice was with us last year. And if you're a Fox News viewer, you've very likely heard her story. And we have come to know her as the embodiment of strength and grace and courage. And as you might remember, Janice lost both her father-in-law and her mother-in-law to COVID-19 during the period of Governor Cuomo's deadly nursing home mandate that put COVID-positive patients into very vulnerable nursing home populations. To this day, he's the only governor in the nation that had that deadly combination of requiring nursing homes to accept the COVID-positive patients, but then prohibited them from testing. And to this day, we still don't know the true number of lives lost as the result. Cuomo continues to stonewall and outright lie as to what happened. His modus operandi is to be silent and to squash opposition. He sent his own health commissioner out that said that he did his own investigation and they were cleared. But that hasn't been able to silence someone as strong as Janice Dean, who has been a true champion for thousands and thousands of families that have lost loved ones. She's used her platform and notoriety to be a voice for the voiceless. And needless to say, that hasn't made Andrew Cuomo a very happy camper. He unleashed his minions, Rich Ezra Party, his big mouth in chief, to viciously attack her and to try to discredit her. I know I speak for everyone here when I say how disgusted we are by the smears and have great admiration for Janice, her family, and the fearlessness that she has exhibited as she has told her story and advocated for families across this state and across this nation. So we are honored that she's come back to the Chairman's Town Hall once again to join us, to update us on her fight for truth and for justice. And with that, please welcome to the Chairman's Video Town Hall, the first one for 2021, Janice Dean, Fox News. Welcome, Janice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me again, Chairman. I appreciate it.
It's so great. So we've can you walk us through, for those that might not have followed it, what came forward from the governor's office where they started to attack your credibility?
Well, first of all, it's my father-in-law's birthday today. He would have been 85 years old. And so we remember him and his wife, Dee, my husband's mom, whose birthday was last month. And we missed them over the holidays, obviously, like so many New Yorkers missing their family members. There are thousands of us out there that, because of Governor Cuomo's mandate to put COVID positive patients into nursing homes, and we still don't, have answers or accountability from him. And it's been 10 months now that I've been covering this governor. And quite harshly at times, obviously, because he is not getting asked the questions that we want to hear. And unfortunately, he continues to stonewall, as you mentioned. There are many lawsuits trying to get the exact number of seniors that died from getting COVID in their elder care facilities. Many of them died in the hospital, like my mother-in-law, so we don't have an accurate total. There are many publications that are trying to get answers, Empire State being one of them, that have sued through the FOIL Act, trying to get those numbers, and they continue to say they don't have the information. The Justice Department as well is trying to get those answers, and I am fearful because we have a new administration that might be more favorable to the governor, that lawsuit, those answers won't happen. So that's why I've been very vocal. I've written op-eds. I've been, on social media, trying my best to make sure that people know what's going on in New York. I've highlighted Governor DeSantis's way of getting the vaccinations out to seniors, which has been incredible. Regardless of what party you're from, you have to admire the fact that he put seniors first. He put them first. And Governor Cuomo, once again, put seniors last. They are not top of mind for this governor, as you mentioned. The vaccination rollout is a disgrace. We're running out of vaccines. The fact that he didn't let the counties actually handle it themselves, they were prepared to do that, but instead he decided to make it the hospital's concern. And, I don't think that they were prepared for it. Then there was the online mess that people are still going through right now, trying to get online for their parents and their grandparents. They're being told to go across town to different parts of the city to get their parents and grandparents vaccinated. And once they get there, their appointments are canceled. It is a disaster. So, I'm still out there trying to be a voice for those that don't have one. And very recently, the governor's office, Rich as a party, who you mentioned, who has contacted me a couple of times. The first time he reached out was during an interview that I had with a local New York reporter. And his comment was, can you ask Janice Dean what nursing homes her in-laws were at and the date that they died? So instead of saying, I'm sorry for your loss, what can we do for you? Is there any way we can help your family? It was, you need to prove that they died first. So that was the first time I had heard from his office. And he asked that question twice to two different reporters. And then the last time I heard from him, he was questioning whether I was a credible source. Maybe if you wanted to know weather forecasts, I might be credible. But when it comes to losing family members in New York, I guess to him and his office and the governor's office, I'm not a credible source.
It's despicable. And we've come to expect no less, from the governor, who can't handle criticism. He wants all the power, but none of the criticism that comes with being in power. And his staff, we've seen this on display full well. First the attack on you in total disrespect shown to a family that has paid a tremendous price due to his mismanagement. But he unleashes his staff like a bunch of internet trolls to attack people while on the government dime. They've done it to Congresswoman Elise Stefanik constantly, trying to talk about national politics and campaign related matters, while they should be administering the greatest crisis that's probably ever faced New York. And,
absolutely.
We need to use vehicles like this and continue to pound away to make sure that this is known, and it needs to be reported on more. I mean, our friends in the media in Albany have to, bring this more to the forefront, that people, and especially victims, are being disrespected.
Yes, they. He also attacked my sister-in-law because she's very forceful on Twitter as well, and he's called people who question what's going on with the administration and their deadly order, the March 25th order. They've called us death cults. He calls us a death cult. And he attacked my sister-in-law and said, get a life and a clue. So this is what they're doing on social media instead of attacking what is going on right now in New York and getting vaccinations into the arms of the people of New York. Instead, they're online. I call them the spokes troll because that's what they do all day. They just attack people. It's truly awful. And I'll tell you, and you will know this, if this was a Republican governor with a Republican administration that was going after people whose family members died, do you know what kind of uproar this would be? It's mind-boggling to me, Chairman. It really is.
The double standard is on full display, and it's almost as if, you know, those in the press corps turn a blind eye because they're afraid of getting shut off from the sources that they've already been shut off from. I mean, you have a governor that's changed his opportunity to talk to the people, where he did these, you know, in-person briefings that he won his Emmy Award for. And frankly, he should actually get the award for most lives lost in the course of a pandemic, and most businesses killed. You know, those are other, you know, categories he got nominated for, but, you know, they didn't publicize. But as he is so proud of these briefings, well, what do you know? Now, you know, the CDC doesn't think we should do these in person anymore. So we're going to do them on Zoom, not for the ease of the press, because the press was more than happy to go and ask questions in person. No. So because Jimmy Vielkind had the chutzpah to take the governor on directly, they couldn't push mute on his screen because he was in person. And the governor flamed out. You saw his personality on full display. And now they're all virtual briefings in the press. They might get half a question out before they get silenced, and there's no follow-ups. This is not a democracy in the state of New York. This is why we need to restore the state legislature to have the authority that they have under our Constitution. And I hate to break it to you folks, just yesterday, Senator Tom O'Mara took to the floor of the New York State Senate with a hostile amendment to call on Democrats to rescind the emergency powers, to go back to the way things are supposed to be. And they all, like lemmings, shot it down. Not one Democrat in that Senate stood up and stood for taking those powers back. They like it this way. They like being subjects in a kingdom. And, you know, there's, I've long said this, Janice, that there's only one way to change New York, and it's to change governors in the state of New York. And, you know, you coming forward and, you know, sharing your story and, you know, watching how they can't handle you sharing your story is going to help us do that. So I thank you again, you know, so much for, you know, having the courage, you know, after the loss that your families had to be out there on the front lines of this. So have you spoken to any Democrat members of the legislature? Or have any of them, you know, taken to your story, and have any of them expressed any willingness to stop the cover up and perhaps fight a little more for the truth here?
Assemblyman Ron Kim has been out there helping. He lost an uncle in a nursing home. And from the very beginning, he has helped in trying to make this a bipartisan effort. You know, a few months ago, I went to Albany. I supported a bill to try to get the total number of seniors that died in nursing homes, and he was in support of that. And there were other Democratic lawmakers in the Senate as well that wanted change, that wanted to find out what was going on, what went on in the nursing homes. Because if you don't know what happened, then you can't prevent something that's from happening again. And far too many seniors died. And the fact that this governor still hasn't answered the question of why he had the mandate in place written up, for 46 days, why he didn't use the facilities that were given by the federal government, including the Comfort Ship and the Javits Center and the other makeshift hospitals. Why weren't those ever used? And why do we still not have the total number of seniors that died? The governor, when he is asked the question about the nursing homes, uses bad statistics, bad math, because we don't have those numbers. So he always says, oh, well, New York is at the bottom of the list when it comes to the people that died in the nursing homes, because we don't have those numbers, and he continues to get away with it. So what I want is, I need more support. Obviously, I have your support. I need bipartisan support. And I can't get over how afraid people are of this governor. I mean, I've heard it from lawmakers. I've heard it from reporters. As you mentioned, now there are reporters that continue to hold up their hand every day to ask questions, and they still don't get called on. He really picks and chooses who he takes questions from. And as you mentioned, I've said that it looks like this guy just wants to be a celebrity. He doesn't want to be a governor. He wants to hang out with his buddies, Bobby De Niro and Billy Crystal, and he wants to win Emmys, and he wants to write books about leadership in a pandemic, and he wants to have birthday parties for himself where you have to sign a check to his reelection campaign. Governor, if you want to be a celebrity, by all means, we would, go to Hollywood and then let somebody else take over. Because as you mentioned, it really is like he's a king. He's taken over the vaccine rollout. And you know what? If people didn't pay attention to the nursing home issue, maybe they'll pay attention to the vaccine issue, because it is affecting millions of New Yorkers.
Well, it's how we get out of this. Everyone wants to get back to normal. Everyone on this call wants to get back to normal. Everyone across the state of New York wants to get back to normal. The only way is through herd immunity and getting this vaccine distributed, for as many people as possible. And you brought this up earlier about the vaccine distribution. And I think, we've really got to dig in on this, is how cumbersome it is to get an appointment. My wife and I were trying to help the other day, our in-laws try to, who are in their 70s, try to navigate, the system to get an appointment. Well, there were tricks to it, and you could refresh certain pages and more, sooner appointments would come available. But why should this be so hard? I mean, this was harder than anything. And if you just logged in and didn't do any of the tricks that someone taught us to do, the first appointment available would have been March 29th. I mean, at that point, we were supposed to be distributing it wider to more age brackets. And here patients in their 70s are having a difficult time. Now, there's plenty of seniors out there that don't have a support network of younger relatives or, caregivers that can help navigate a system and get, appointments locked down. So if they just saw the first thing that came down the path, they take it, and they wouldn't get that vaccine till March or April or whatever. In my home county of Erie, I mean, you don't hear any criticism out of the Democrat county executive, but they've had to cancel a whole week of clinics where people had scheduled appointments for vaccine because this is not being accounted for. You've got this, multifaceted system, and it seems to be lawlessness. You can go to Rite Aid and maybe get it, but your county runs out, but the state might have an appointment. People are confused, and it's not fair. We pay too much in this state to deal with this. Mm-hmm. So we have to, turn the heat up on those that are in power, and there's only one that's really in power right now.
True.
Andrew Cuomo.
You're absolutely right. He's the one. He's the guy. So everyone that's angry because he's taken all of the power, you have one guy to blame, and it's him, because he has decided that he's the one that decides everything. The counties, which have had plans in place for years on how to distribute a vaccine if and when a pandemic happened, completely out the window, decided, nope, we're going to give it to the hospitals. Why? Why did he decide on the private hospitals that they were the ones that were going to bear the brunt of giving the vaccine out? there are so many avenues you can go down to find out perhaps like a money trail or some kind of corruption with the decisions that this guy makes.
It's unbelievable. We have many questions, both written, people with their hand up. We're going to try to get through as many of them as possible. We're very, mindful of Janice's time. She's been, quite generous in sharing that time with us here. And we're very grateful for that, Janice. I'm going to get right to one that we have, I think, from Clark and Plattsburgh, but also from Rob and Schenectady and from Nick and Amherst. Would you ever consider running for governor of the state of New York?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm still with Fox for now, by contract agreement. Listen, you never say never in this life, right? And many people have gotten into government because something personal has happened to them. And I will tell you, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, which I love, by the way, I've been at Fox for 17 years. I do see at some point in my life being an advocate for seniors, whether that be helping nursing homes. I mean, this is a bigger picture, right? The nursing home industry, not just COVID. But I think a reworking of the whole system needs to be done, not only in New York, but really across the US, even in Canada. I mean, it's very sad what has happened in nursing homes and how we, really give our loved ones over to this system where we want them to get the best of care. And that's just not happening. So if anything down the road, I do perhaps see myself as somebody who wants to help that industry and lend my voice to make sure that things are better, because it's, my heart goes out to all of those people like us who had ailing parents that couldn't take care of themselves and needed 24-hour care. And so I understand what they're going through and the pain that you go through when you're trying to make those decisions. So, for now, I'm really happy with where I am. I'm very flattered by that. And I also will say that at some point, I would love to be able to be on a stage with Mr. Cuomo and ask them some questions. How about that?
Well, that's one way I can guarantee you'll eventually get on that stage. So we'll keep that conversation going. But Janice, you've certainly become. It's clear that you put your heart, out there for the world to see, to understand the pain of a family and what lost to this pandemic. And I think almost all of us at this point know someone close to us that's, had a family member, succumb. But you've paid a tremendous price. But sharing that with so many has humanized this crisis for those that haven't. And you've done an incredible job. Another question coming in is there any organization of survivor families or victim families from the nursing home crisis that has kind of taken shape? Is there any sort of structure to that?
Well, there's an advocacy group called Voices for Seniors that I have gotten to know, and the families that are associated with it. The woman that runs it, Vivian, lost her mother in a long-term facility, and not because her mom was in a nursing home because she was ill. She was there for rehab, and she got COVID and died. So she has taken that advocacy and made it into a non-for-profit. And I love the work that she's doing. And, even though she's lost her mom over the Christmas holidays, they all got together and went to nursing homes, socially distant, of course, and brought gifts to the seniors, because unfortunately, there are seniors that are in nursing homes that don't have any visitors. I realize that they're not having visitors at all right now. But just the loneliness that sets in. We're losing more seniors now because of loneliness and not seeing their family members and dying of broken hearts now. So I love that group. That's the group, by the way, Voices for Seniors, that the administration called a death cult, because we are all grieving families that have gotten together and want answers for why our loved ones died.
Well, that's good. Let's go to someone on screen here. We have Jessica, if we could pull up Pomona trustee Brett Yeagle. Brett, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Langworthy, and good afternoon, Jessica. We were having a lot of issues down in Rockland County with between the governor and our county executive when COVID was rampant back in the March and April timeframe, and we were asked to stay in place. We were asked for a containment zone. The containment zone was not provided like it was in New Rochelle. In our particular instance now with the vaccine, I believe we only had 200 vaccines that were on supply to be given out in Rockland County. And we feel that this truly is a political vendetta by the governor. I do have a side note to say about the governor. I do have friends who have dealt with him when he was a much younger man. When the second opening of the Tappan Zee Bridge occurred in September of, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, I had the chance to speak with him and I said, you know, Governor, we both had very powerful fathers. Mine happened to be the lead sales engineer that sold the first nuclear propelled unit that went to sea on the U.S. Navy's USS Nautilus. But you don't see a submarine named after him. Why did you strip this entire region of its history? I then went on to say, and he's looking at me like, who the hell are you? And at the time I was mayor, and I said, oh, and by the way, my neighbor, Paul Greco, when he was in the NYPD, he used to bring your ass home for drag racing on Francis Lewis Boulevard when your father was an assemblyman. And he started laughing, shaking his head up and down. So is there anything that you can do, Jessica, to find out what's going on, why we have not received the vaccines? I'm getting a lot of complaints and queries from people that are saying we can't even get an appointment here to get the vaccine.
I'll jump in there. Thank you for sharing your story. But we have, I've heard from county executives all over New York, counties big and counties small, and they feel that they're being, choked off from this distribution process. And, is it that he wants to have more of the vaccine distributed through the state? Perhaps. Is it that there's areas that maybe don't, share the governor's, political viewpoints, or maybe have spoken out a little too vocally? Perhaps that's the case as well. I mean, there's no great theme other than it's just a mess. I mean, the counties are much better prepared to distribute this vaccine than the state is right now. And, the fact that it's a I guess, trilateral, process between counties, the state, and then private pharmacies or supermarket chains, there's nothing but confusion. And instead of a race to get the shot in the arm, many people they want it now, but you're hearing from some seniors, well, I'm comfortable going to my pharmacy. I mean, that's why you put too many choices into this process. It's going to end up confused, and people are going to get delayed in vaccination. So thank you for sharing that that with us. But it's something that we have to keep turning the heat up on this process. Someone that I think also is going to be helping in that, I see Assemblyman John Sulka is on the call. John, are you there with us? Going to bring him up.
I'm right here. Just let's see here.
Welcome.
Okay. Janice, thank you very much. And our prayers are with you and your family, and the pain that you have felt through this crisis is something that no family should go through. And again, and thank you so much for your advocacy for so many thousands of people throughout New York State. We all understand what our governor and his megalomaniac tactics have done to this state. As a minority conference, we're trying so hard to challenge him. We just sent out a letter from our office, as a matter of fact, that would suggest that a hotline is created for people 65 or older, because there's a lot of them that are not very astute when it comes to using a computer. They are used to picking up the phone, or if they do have cell phones, they're a little bit more acquainted with a PC. So we're trying to make sure that we make some constructive suggestions to the governor, appeal to him that what we are suggesting makes sense, You got to kind of stroke his ego a little bit, unfortunately, in the process, which really makes me bite my lip very hard. But in the same respect, if we can relay to him that we are aware of a need out there from our seniors, that we can have something legitimate option to give them. So, most of the calls that we get, if they're not unemployment calls, they're calls that are people that are being stymied by their local health departments as far as making calls. They're calling and the line goes dead. They're just completely overwhelmed. I had the opportunity to be the vice president of our local board of health in Madison County for 6 years. I have a background of 30 years plus in the medical profession. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that people have good, reliable information on what their options are, and give the counties, as we sent a letter last week from our minority conference, give the counties the tools that they need. They've been doing this for years. We have rolled out flu vaccines for years now. We did point of distributions with the hospitals and with the local health departments, and we were great at it. We were great. This is our forte. So we're trying to appeal to the governor I know he's a control freak, but if in fact he ends up looking a little bit better for it, give the control back to the counties, let them handle it, give them the supply of the vaccines that they need, and it'll be a system that works. And with your advocacy, and Chairman, with your advocacy too in this respect, we're hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that we're going to be making some headway. As recently as this morning, I got phone calls from seniors that are desperate. They want the vaccine. They're terrified. One gentleman who ran a small business in upstate told me, John, I'm terrified right now. I can't leave the house because I'm so afraid at 64 years old and with some health issues that if I go out there, I'm going to die. And these are the kind of emotions that just kind of grab you and say, we got to do something. I wish I could shake the governor and say, wake up and realize what you're doing. But I guess the only way is to put
shame them. You have to shame them. You have to shame them. And many people, including lawmakers, have told me that the only way you can get to the governor is to shame him into something. I think it would be really beneficial, instead of doing his little press conferences where he, has the script and his PowerPoint presentation. I think he needs to do like a town hall where he's got residents, socially distanced, you can do it on Zoom, and he's got reporters, and he's answering these questions as they come in, and he gives them the time of day. Right now, again, he doesn't answer any questions. He picks and chooses who gets those questions. There's no follow-ups. And like you mentioned, I mean, I'm the meteorologist, and I know this should have been done by a county by county. They knew what to do. We would be probably like so far ahead of this game if he had just done that. So it's really sad that we're just gonna, unfortunately, I think it's gonna take both sides to shame this governor, to do something.
Yeah, and he sends his minions out. Last week we had a legislative briefing by Commissioner Zucker. It was pretty much lip service. He did what he said he was going to do. He spoke with us and briefed us for about 35 minutes. They limited the amount of questions that could be answered. And then when our ranking member on health, Kevin Byrne, who's doing a great job.
Love him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he's trying to ask some questions, and the connection went dead. So, this is an approach. We're going to have to take a more aggressive approach and try to corner this guy into giving us some answers. And like you said, shame him. Unfortunately, we're going to put targets on our backs because he's a very vindictive guy. But ultimately, we're here to serve the people, especially in times like this when they're so afraid. We've got to be there for answers and options for them. And again, I look forward to working with you and the chairman on anything that we can do to help our communities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So much for joining us, Assemblyman, and thanks for all your hard work, for not just your district, but for all taxpayers in the state of New York. Janice, I want to pivot a little bit back to the DOJ investigation. I know that, there was some effort to get some satisfaction out of the federal government to get answers, because, we what amounts to nothing less than a cover-up that's gone on in our state. The governor's admission was somewhere around maybe 6,000 nursing home deaths, but everyone knows it's 12,000 or more. And as the numbers continue to climb in the state, there's got to be more and more being added to that every single day. So what is next with the DOJ now that we have a change in administration?
Unfortunately, not much. And I actually spoke with a senior official with the DOJ over the Christmas holidays, and he admitted that he had gotten nothing, no information whatsoever from this administration. So, not only is he King Cuomo, but he figures that even the biggest investigative unit in the land, he will not pay attention to. So I don't have a lot of hope, to be honest with you. But yesterday, Assemblyman Kim and Assemblyman Byrne, bipartisan, wrote a letter to our new president, Joe Biden, and asked him to keep this alive, that we deserve the answers to this investigation. And I don't know if it'll do much, but at least it's keeping it alive, or it's on life support probably right now. But I appreciate them. And I think, Chairman, unfortunately, you do get a target on your back if you go against this governor. And that's why I think there has to be more of us coming together as a unit, not just as one person, one family, but as a unit, that we all say something and know that there is safety in numbers. You can't put a target on all of our backs, I don't think.
No, there's safety in numbers, and we need more people to get involved and to ask the tough questions. And if our federal officials, I know, have done a tremendous job as well to try to keep that going, and hopefully we get some traction even in a minority in the House of Representatives to push for these answers to come forward. We're joined now by New York State Senator George Borrello, who represents the Southern Tier. Welcome, Senator George Borrello.
Oh, Chairman, thank you very much. I appreciate you doing this and staying in contact with all of us. Janice, thank you very much for what you're doing in your efforts and truly advocating. And let me echo what some others have said saying that we would love to see you run for office at some point, because you are someone who's in it for the right reasons, not for the money, not for the political favors, but because you care about people and you're willing to put yourself out there. So we would love to have you sometime in the future. My question is, last week I was in New York City, and it is devastating to see what's going on there. The streets are largely empty, except for people that look very questionable. You've seen the economic devastation of this governor's bad policies. I'm in the restaurant business myself, but you've seen the restaurateurs down there that have been devastated. And being someone who's in New York City and in that area, my question to you is the tide finally turning with people there? Are they realizing the devastating impact of Mayor de Blasio and this governor, what it has done to their economy and the quality of life? Because that's what has to happen, in my opinion. We need, and I was on Zoom conferences with restaurant owners where in the beginning of the pandemic, they were kowtowing to the governor, telling what a wonderful job he was doing, until now where they are, so desperate that they are finally starting to stand up for themselves. And is that happening in your estimation? Have you seen that? Because that's really what we need to do to turn the state around, is to get those folks in New York City to finally realize that bad policy, things like bail reform, the lockdown, everything else that has made New York State less safe and more dangerous to live, is the realization is what we need to have happen. And it's got to start in New York City.
I think you're right. And I talk to a lot of people that lived in New York and are moving out of the state. Several of my friends that lived in the city are no longer there anymore. And that should tell you something. And it's not just because of restaurants and businesses closing down, which is what's happening, but the schools The fact that they can't take the distant learning anymore, so from what I can see, perhaps we do have to hit a rock bottom and see how many people are leaving the state. And the fact that the governor is now going to tax us beyond repair in some cases to try to save New York. I don't know if we're ever going to know the complete devastation until we know all of those numbers that are moving out of state and not going to those schools and not operating their restaurants and their businesses. Mayor de Blasio is also a disgrace, unfortunately, and now we have the chance to bring a new mayor in, which might help. But any way you slice it, it's not good news. It's not.
Well, what we see so far out of the Democrats in the race for mayor, I think they're racing to be de Blasio 2.0. So it scares me quite a bit that it's going to again be a race to the left, and we're going to have more activism than we are sound management, and that's what's lacking. Is there's too much ideology and not enough people willing to roll up their sleeves to get the job done. And I'm not willing to give up on this city or this state yet, because the city is the greatest city in the world, and it's the politicians that have killed it. We were just at the RNC meeting with Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said it wasn't COVID-19 that crippled our economy; it was government that crippled our economy. Mm-hmm. And these governmental decisions are having long-term impacts. I mean, the indoor dining is taking the heart out of the city. The closure and the businesses and people that have lost their dreams and everything they've worked for. I mean, on top of suffering from their health or their family's health due to the virus, you're suffering, the economic impact, which is going to be lasting for a generation for some of these families. And, your heart just breaks for everything that New Yorkers are dealing with. But, it's as if in blue states, there's no eye on the economy. But to watch the governor in his state of the state speech say, we can't have the state locked down forever. We have to start moving towards reopening. I mean, the metamorphosis that he's taken since we've gotten closer to Joe Biden's inauguration, it's so transparent. Either that or he's looking at his own balance sheet and figuring out we can't make it in this state unless we reopen, because too many are hitting the exits. We have a crisis of population. We are losing people by the day for greater freedom and greater opportunity elsewhere. And so many people that snowbird, now they're saying, well, I guess that could be a year-round solution for me. And in Florida seems to have it just about right. So that is something that is one of the great crises that faces the state. One topic that comes up a lot, and I get a lot of correspondence about, people ask about the concept of recalling the governor, because as my friends in the California Republican Party are doing, they're recalling Gavin Newsom for a lot of the same reasons that people want to recall Andrew Cuomo. They have something called initiative and referendum and recall in California. It's not allowed under the New York State Constitution. How convenient, huh? That we can't recall our elected officials. But, we're going to stay tuned on that, because I think there's some people that are having some discussions. So, we'll probably have some announcements very soon about some efforts coming forward. But, we have to get attention. As you said, the pressure points onto this governor is the only way he understands, is if he feels a little pain himself. So I believe it's been revealed that the emperor has no clothes here. It's just a matter of getting people to pay attention. So we have just a few questions here left in a couple minutes to go here. Have any of the officials at the Department of Health ever reached out to you after your interviews?
No, no, I wish, like, and I've always said this at the very beginning, Chairman, if someone had reached out to my family and if the governor had gone on television and said, I made a mistake, I had bad information, I shouldn't have done it, I apologize, I can't bring your family back, but all I can do is say, I am so sorry, we would have actually accepted that. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Who's to know what to do? Where do you put all of these people? But the fact that he continued to just roll on and write books and promote himself and miss meetings with the White House to talk, he missed 17 meetings with the White House to talk about how they were going to help the COVID response in New York. So the fact that he cares more about himself and the fact that he gave 4 State of the State addresses last week, instead of like getting down to business and trying to get vaccines into people's arms, I mean, I don't know how much more people have to see to really understand what he is all about. And he is all about himself and not about the people he represents.
It's evident, and the micromanagement that takes place. He's directly involved in the smallest decisions here, and that is the frustrating thing we have, is that he uses his influence to squelch the voices of professionals that are put on display here. So we are there any ways that people can help you in your efforts, Janice, to continue to get the word out there?
Well, I'm very vocal on social media. And, I also give forecasts. I'm also the weather person.
Good job with that.
So it's this fine line that I walk. I love what I do. I love giving people the weather. So there's a little bit of weather, and sometimes there are, dog videos that I'll post, just to lighten the load. But that's where I think I am the strongest when it comes to, trying to, enhance what I'm reading and enhance some of the reports that are being done by good reporters. The New York Post, the AP has done a good job. The New York Times even has done some good reporting on the vaccine rollout. So I will always highlight those interviews that kind of correspond to what I'm outraged about. So you can always follow me on social media. I'm at Janice Dean on Twitter, and I'm at Janice Dean on Facebook, and I'm Janice Dean FNC on Instagram. And I welcome everyone, and I encourage discussion as well. As long as you're not cruel, I encourage all voices.
Well, and I will say you're very communicative, and people can contact you through those social media pages. It's great.
Absolutely.
And it helps to share these stories. And you could always contact us through the New York Republican State Committee. We are on every social media platform. I want to give a shout out to our new digital director, Bobby Walker, who's doing a great job to get the word out. And we have one of the largest followings of any Republican Party state committee in the country, and we're going to keep focusing on that. Even though there's plenty of efforts to censor, we haven't experienced them directly yet. And I know there's a lot of people that have other questions that are off topic. We're going to be back at this every single week, and there's a lot of time to unpack a lot of the other topics, but we wanted to really talk to Janice today about her story and her experiences and how we can help reveal the real true nature of this governor. I think we have one last on-camera question from Jamie. Welcome, Jamie. Jamie.
Asked her to unmute, Chairman.
Are you muted, Jamie?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you guys for having this. I just wanted to really thank Janice for everything that she's been putting out there on the media and standing up for everybody. I am in the group with the Voices for Senior. I as well lost my mom in a nursing home when she was only there for rehab. And I just cannot believe how much finger pointing that Governor Cuomo does and doesn't take responsibility for anything and constantly blames everybody and wants to put on this show for the world and get credit for something that he hasn't done for all of the people. You think you get into public service to work for the people, and it's a sad thing that they turn and do it for the money and take bribes and do whatever they can to silence the people rather than do good for the people. I wholeheartedly agree that I think Janice should run and do good for the people. It is there that she wants to get this out, the truth to be out. And it goes beyond this crisis, what Cuomo has done to our state. I mean, people are leaving left and right on a daily basis because of his mismanagement of everything. It goes far beyond COVID. And I just hope that we can all work together and fight this fight and get somebody in to take care of us, the people. It is really what I wanted to get out there.
Well, thank you, Jamie.
God bless
Thank
you,
you.
Jamie.
Thank you.
For helping.
Well, Janice, thank you so much for spending an hour with the New York Republican Party, and thank you for giving that voice to so many people that are voiceless in this process. You've done an amazing job.
I am happy to be here, and I'm happy to return anytime you want. And this is not a political thing. I mean, if the Democrats invited me to come on to a town hall, I would be there. This is my family, my in-laws were registered Democrats. So it shouldn't be about party, but fortunately, you give me this platform. You allow me to tell my story, and for that, I am so grateful, Chairman. And I will come on anytime you want. And I feel very blessed to have you in my corner. And I think safety in numbers. We need to all come together for the good of the people of New York.
Well, thank you so much, Janice. Always, full of energy and grace and courage. So we're very grateful for having you here today. And we're grateful for having everyone that joined us, whether it's through Facebook Live or Zoom. We had a tremendous audience today, and we're going to keep that going. This is a medium that we use to communicate directly with our grassroots and our organization to say what's going on in the state of New York, what you need to know, and what we're doing at the New York Republican Party. Please take a moment to join us on our state committee website, nygop.org, or join our Facebook page if you haven't already, or follow us on Instagram or Twitter or any of the other social media platforms that are out there. We're always looking for new ways to communicate with people. We're going to be back with this programming every single week to try to bring different topics to the forefront, showcase some of our great Republican elected officials and people that are out there fighting the good fight on behalf of taxpayers to restore democracy to New York. The challenges are great. We're in a difficult time, in a transitional time in our party, but I'm excited about the opportunities. I'm excited about what we can do to restore two-party government to this state. And we are working day and night to reveal what one-party government has done and what it'll do to our country, but also what it's done to the state and the city of New York. So we look forward to being back with you next week. I got a point of personal privilege. Go Bills.
Yeah. Go Bills.
Let's go do this and have a big win on Sunday. So God bless you all. We'll see you back again next week. Thanks again, Janice.
Thank you, my friend. Go Bills.